In the beginning, God created heaven and earth and all living creatures. And there was peace. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth and all living creatures. And there was peace. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth and all living creatures. And there was peace. But here we are, near the 21st century, and man has walked on the moon. Yet there are people starving in a world of plenty, and the threat of nuclear warfare that could destroy many. Lord, just give us a sign and help us look inside our hearts and souls to find a way to try and make right the wrongs and keep peace in our world strong. Lord, we need you to show us which way to go. If we all join hands and pray together, we can make a better world, you and I. We can make a better world if we try. We can make a better world if we all unite to end world hunger. We can make a better world, you and I. We can make a better world if we try. We can make a better world.
It's a sunny day in Halifax. And I think that is a most marvelous symbol of what this conference is going to be all about. A very sunny experience, an experience that is going to help us change the world from so much that is dark and destructive to what is going to be bright and more cheerful.
This candle of peace and enlightenment was first lighted the other evening at a ceremony of meditation, celebration, and invocation, which was held for the women on Sunday, June the 2nd, the night of the Gemini full moon. And the Gemini full moon is related to the Festival of Humanity and the Festival of Right Relations, and seem to speak, as we understand it, to the purposes of this conference. So that night, our peace candle was lighted. We are going to light it this morning, and then it will burn this morning, and at the end of the session, it will be taken to our meditation room. You'll see also we have small candles, and these will be lighted off the large one. And I will ask the facilitators of each workshop to come and take a candle from the meditation room, light it from the main candle, and take it to the workshop session with you. At the end of the sessions on the interfaith service, all the candles will then be gathered in, all the light, all the enlightenment, all the wisdom from the conference, and we will continue to use that symbol through our interfaith service on Sunday morning, along with the symbol of water, life-giving water. Peace.
For a nigger miner digging gypsum for the cash to fix his shoes.
And now they are more than 85%, they are for the Kanak independence, for the true independence. We have enough, because New Caledonia for us is an apartheid in the Pacific. In one hand, you find the blacks as the Kanak people, and in the other hand, the white settlers, who called us every day the dirty Kanaks. Out of 60,000 Kanak people, only 7,000 have a job.
Nicaragua está soportando desde hace varios años una agresión económica, política y militar de parte de la potencia militar más grande del mundo. Esta política oficial de los Estados Unidos cuesta a nuestro pueblo la vida de más de 7,000 nicaragüenses y daños materiales calculados en 386 millones de dólares, que significa el 33% de nuestras exportaciones anuales.
La represión es contra una minoría que no consideramos argentina, SIC. Pero pronto esa minoría fue creciendo y cualquiera era sospechoso de pactar con ideas foráneas, SIC. Psicólogos, artistas, estudiantes, periodistas, cualquiera podía tener ideas infectadas, SIC.
But the third world is significant and is important to them because we represent the areas in which military strength has to be ensured and ascertained. We are needed as bases for the countries, places to have military bases in the struggle for global power, in the struggle to be in control of the world, and to use the popular phrase, the desire to become the policeman of the world. Who is going to be the greater policeman? Is it going to be the US or is it going to be the Soviet Union?
Mais nous, peuple de Polynésie, quel droit avons-nous? Alors notre combat se situe sur deux plans. Pour avoir la paix, il nous faut d'abord être nous-mêmes. La revendication de la paix passe d'abord par la reconnaissance de notre identité, par la reconnaissance de nos droits. Droit à la libération, droit d'être nous-mêmes. Chez nous, alors notre combat se situe sur ces deux plans. Et comme nous ne pouvons pas parler tant que nous sommes dominés,
we are therefore not merely concentrating on the small area that is called the Republic of South Africa. Apartheid, as I mentioned before, is a poison that spreads throughout the world. It affects every one of you in this room.
We must have full participation in decisions affecting our lives. And thus we must organize communication networks as well and reject all sources of disinformation. Conflict resolution demands openness and the admission of vulnerability, not secrecy. Openness implies accountability and responsibility to others, and that is what a true negotiator accepts. We must share and gather information.
How do we keep women who are in the situation we're in, and especially community levels, where the money is, haphazard and whatever, but how do we keep...
In every community has the specific problem, not quite the same. Like from Laos, we have the mentality a little different from those from Vietnam, from China, and so on.
By talking, discussing, and getting on friendly, personal terms with people, and yet we don't agree with them. We're always pushing them to bring in more refugees, to change this and that, and the bureaucracy, which makes it difficult. But by this, we've been able to create a really good system, and we can talk to them as people.
It is the kind of drugs that are being unloaded in our part of the world, especially drugs like Depo-Provera and so on. We didn't even touch on those things.
I like to go on working on persuading our government to reflect the true needs of women. And if I can't persuade the government,
I got to change the institutions, and I know that.
I want something to come out of this conference that can go to Nairobi to show the world what we women are thinking. And I don't know why.
I feel very strongly that we absolutely must resolve to set up a specific international network that would be extremely well organized and that would set for itself an agenda here of concrete actions that it could carry out very conceivably, that are, very realistic and very possible.
Really kind of step back and look at the whole. And I think that the kinds of things that I hope we'll keep sharing through the process tomorrow is how we can support each other, given who we are, where we are, and what we've been doing. And in turn, in other words, I would like to know, in other words, when I can, what kinds of channels I can have with immigrant women who can tell me in turn about the countries that they are in contact with.
My name is Kim Besley, and I've come over from England to come to this conference which has been set up by the Coalition of Women in Canada.
I'm Noor Zipo. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa. I presently live in Dayton, Ohio, in the United States. I'm in exile there at this time, and I'm in exile because I'm actively engaged against the government that is operating in South Africa now, and I do that through my organization, which is the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, one of the liberation movements in my country that has been mandated by the people to make sure that our people attain self-determination.
I find it difficult to really explain why I came or what I even expected to get out of it. This is an entirely new way of thinking and of working, and we just had to take the risk and see what happened, and my goodness, things are happening.
People who are in countries that are not at war did listen to our point of view as people who are coming from countries that are at war. I would, of course, like to see some action.
And I think one of the positive things also that has come out is the fact that we are exchanging information. Many of us didn't know what was going on in other people's countries and didn't know that one reads about it in the paper, but that's not the same thing as having personal stories. Women's voices should be recognized. I would like that we had, as it were, a separate nation of women that had a voice at the United Nations. Where are we in these negotiations? We're half the population and we're disregarded and trivialized.
Yes.
And it's time we were heard.
Oh yeah, women hold half the sky, and that saying goes very, very true.
But I think
wherever women are in the world, they are faced with manifestations of violence, whether they are physical, whether they are political, whether they are economic. And to me, violence has always been best defined as resourcelessness, the brutal bashing, do as I say or else. And for that reason, it seems to me that nonviolence is resourcefulness. It's the resourcefulness that we have, and we have to exercise in the large and in the small scale, that there is no situation in which there is no other way. There are ways in which we might see starving soldiers rather than starving children on our evening TV. But these ways have to be found, and if we don't find them, nobody will.
I think that one thing that came out of last night and this morning was, even though we haven't worked out any process, is that I think that many women are very articulate, particularly in this action. We all have something to share about what is working and what we believe will work and what we resolve to do. Perhaps we could we do in 2 sentences, 3 sentences in the next 5 minutes, or just each person say a sentence?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
And then we would have our group statement. Does that make sense? Okay, and shall we say something like I resolve, or we resolve, or?
Aye.
All delegates are asked to respect the views of one another and to seek to understand one another's interests. We must anticipate that our views and interests will differ, and we want to deal with our differences in a respectful manner. The conference is our opportunity to learn more about the art of negotiation. It's practice time for peacemakers.
Statement is ready, and I really think we should hear what we said this morning, and if we agree with what we said, and would like to comment on it.
This is from Group 16. We would like to add one more statement. We would like to add, saying we oppose the increased militarization of the North by NATO. Thank you.
We have two major things that we need to present to our government right now. One is our opposition to the Star Wars campaign and the militarization of Canada's north.
The people of Iran and Iran want this war to stop.
And I haven't heard in this conference one single sort of pointing out at what's behind that all. So it's wonderful to network. I'm fully behind it. I admire the work that Sister Bertel does. It is fantastic. But what do we do? You see, there are two trends here.
Now, if a nation would have the courage to withdraw from the treaty saying it has been broken, then it automatically goes into the International Court at The Hague, and they have some mechanisms which they would like to use, but they can't use it unless a nation is willing to take an initiative. I think we could find a nation to do that. Fiji has spoken about its willingness to do it, but they're worried about the economic market in Europe cutting off their sugar market. So there will be retaliations on a nation, and it's going to be up to all of us to support a nation willing to do this. But there, you know, it is one of the possibilities open to us. It's one of the ways of saying we don't want to be bullied.
I don't agree that hers is not an important country. What happens in one person's mind, in one person's sphere of reference, makes ripples all over the world. There is an example that the scientists have shown.
We, the world community of women who are represented here today, are living evidence of women negotiating effectively for peace. We call upon the whole world to make peace a living reality.
We are at the end of a most exciting 5 days, the end of an exciting 5-day conference, the beginning of new action and new hope for women's involvement. Our conference has given us a statement, 350 women from the world community from 33 countries, and we are affirming the need for peace and women's commitment to peace. Marion Cairns and Dorothy Rosenberg, two of the coordinators. How do you feel about it, Marion?
That statement represents not only 350 women from around the world, but here in Canada, that statement represents the distilled wisdom of thousands upon thousands of women.
I think some of us in our original planning were looking at how do women work for peace in different ways. One of the things that we wanted to do was talk about negotiation and negotiation process, looking towards political policy change. How would women do it differently? How would we look at getting to a win-win situation instead of a win-lose situation? How would we reduce the competitiveness and the need for victories and losses? And it turned out that the whole process was one of negotiation. It turned out that people all had their own agendas. It turns out that the women came with all kinds of ideas of their own, which were quite different, but in a sense made us exercise our own democratic procedures. And we saw where these women wanted to succeed. They wanted everybody to win. So we resolved all of our conflicts. We made allowances for everybody's needs. We looked to a process of where, when women were working very intensely to write statements and they got tired, other women stepped in. There was a real together unity, and it was fascinating to see the whole kind of mix of women working together in this fashion.
Women negotiate differently. There are alternatives. I was impressed with the way that there was no preconceived plan, that it came up from the grassroots. We worked through it, and we came together with it, and there was no backroom work done and then the thing superimposed. It was a total involvement of all those people who were at that conference. I thought that was a most remarkable achievement.
I think the formula for our success was two things. One, we had maximum exposure of women from around the world talking with us and talking to us, both in plenary sessions, in panel discussions, and then in small groups. And we kept the same women together for 2.5 hours every day discussing particular issues. What does security mean to women?
We are in a state of crisis. No one minimized the desperate state of our planet, the militarization of the planet, the pollution of the planet, the economic and very cruel games that are played with food in our multi-corporation structure that affects all countries. But despite all of the crises and despite the sort of desperate state, there was this sense that we can help.
That's right.
We can do
there was a
something.
Sense of hope.
There was a real
really
sense of planning, that the peace movement can, in each group in its area,
community from 33 countries, meeting at the Women's International Peace Conference in Halifax, Canada, June 5th to 9th, 1985, affirm the overwhelming need and desperate urgency for peace, which we believe is both the process we live and the goal for which we work. At this conference, women from diverse racial, cultural, ethnic, and political backgrounds, representing different sides of conflict areas, came together as a living example of women negotiating peace. Some of us compromised our own safety to make this commitment. Although women's voices have not been heard, and women have not participated equally in peace negotiations or in formulation of the institutions and the cultural fabric in which we live, we are more than half the world's population. We do have power, and we are shaping it for peaceful living. We reject a world order based on domination, exploitation, patriarchy, racism, and sexism. We demand a new world order based on justice and the equitable distribution of the world's resources. We condemn militarism. Militarism is an addiction that distorts human development, causing worldwide poverty, starvation, pollution, repression, torture, and death. Feeding this habit robs all the world's children and future generations of their inheritance. We all live in the shadow of the threat of nuclear war. We demand an end to research, testing, development, and deployment of all weapons of mass destruction, to the militarization of space, and to all forms of violence. As a first step, we call for a comprehensive test ban treaty. We support the rights and the efforts of all peoples to self-determination and to freedom from military and economic intervention. As an example, we cite Nicaragua as a new kind of society,
and is a symbol of hope which must be allowed to live. We will continue to communicate and join with women all over the world in our struggle for peace. As a result of this conference, we are developing a worldwide women's peace network. Our first act has been to pledge our vigilance in monitoring the ongoing safety of our sisters who are at risk as a result of attending this conference. We are committed to acting globally, nationally, locally, and individually for peace. We will not compromise our commitment to the survival and healing of this planet. We affirm the right of every human being to live with dignity, equality, justice, and joy.
We will have a better world.